Gold Creek, Nevada, 2:14 a.m. The storm had teeth, sand and sleet slicing sideways under the dying glow of a single gas pump. Inside the old service shack, Cutter Hale, road captain of the Hellsangels Cold Creek chapter, heard it. 3 soft knocks. Not begging, not asking, just hoping someone would answer. Before we start this story, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Also, please subscribe to the channel. It will help us to bring you more inspiring stories every day. Cutter didn't move at first. The wind outside howled like an animal remembering pain, and his coffee steamed in the half-dark. He'd been on the road 16 hours straight, bleeding silence into the walls of that half-collapsed cabin the angels used between runs. The knock came again, lighter this time, then a pause, then a whisper. "Please." Cutter reached for his pistol out of habit. The door creaked open against the wind. A little girl stood there, no jacket, just an oversized denim shirt, sleeves dragging in the snowmelt. Her cheeks were raw, lips cracked. Behind her, slumped against a busted-up Toyota, was a woman. She wasn't moving much, just breathing shallow. Her belly looked ready to burst. The girl tilted her head, chin trembling. "Can my mama give birth in your cabin?" Cutter stared down at her, eyes too old for her face, voice too small for the storm. He holstered the gun, stepped aside, and said the only thing that mattered, "Get in." The girl didn't wait. She dragged a ripped army duffel behind her, half frozen, half soaked. Cutter stepped out into the freezing wind, boots crunching gravel as he lifted the woman. She weighed nothing. Her head rolled against his chest, breath sharp and short. Inside, warmth hit like mercy. Cutter laid her on the cot by the stove and kicked the embers to life. The place smelled of oil, smoke, and old leather, but tonight it would have to be a hospital. The girl crouched close, rubbing her mother's hand. "She walked too long," she whispered. Cutter crouched beside her. "You got a name, sweetheart?" "June," he nodded. "Your mama?" "Marlene." "She's hurt bad." Cutter grabbed a clean rag from the tool shelf and pressed it to her forehead. "Ain't dying tonight. You hear me?" June nodded. From outside came the low growl of engines far off, distant, mean, familiar. Cutter froze. The angels weren't due back till morning. He looked at June. "You run from someone?" Her eyes said yes before her mouth could. He locked the door and killed the light. Outside, thunder rolled without rain. Cutter's instincts were screaming. This wasn't random. He sat on the edge of the cot. Marlene's face was pale, bruised under both eyes. Her wrists had old scars, some faded, one fresh. Cutter whispered, "You got family, June?" She shook her head. "Mama says family's what don't sell you." Something broke quietly in him then. He'd seen that kind of knowing before, in shelters, in club wars, in the mirror. Marlene stirred, half-conscious. "Please don't take her," she mumbled. "I'm not taking anyone," Cutter said softly. The girl watched him, measuring. "You one of them?" she asked. He almost laughed. "Them who?" She pointed at the patch on his cut. "Hellsangels, Nevada." He sighed. "Yeah, I'm one of them. But we ain't the ones you ran from." June hesitated, then whispered, "They had wings, too." Cutter's jaw tightened. "What kind of wings?" She pointed 2 fingers like horns. "Black ones." His blood went cold. Rival club outside, tires crackled on gravel. Headlights washed through the cracks in the boarded windows. Cutter's hand went for the shotgun by the stove. "Under the table," he told June. She obeyed without question, pulling a blanket over herself. Marlene groaned as he moved to the door. He glanced back once. "You stay quiet. No matter what." He cracked the door open. A van idled 20 yards away, blacked-out windows, 3 silhouettes inside. "Evening, brother," came a voice. Too friendly. Too late at night. Cutter stepped outside, gun hidden behind his thigh. "Not your night to visit." The man closest to the headlights grinned. "We're looking for a runaway. Woman pregnant." Said she used to ride with Reaper's sons. Cutter's pulse kicked. The Reaper's sons, Southern charter known for trading women like cash. Haven't seen her, Cutter lied. The man squinted. You sure, Angel? She owes our president property back. Cutter's voice dropped to a growl. Then tell your president I'm repossessing her soul. The silence that followed promised fire. The van door slid open. Two men stepped out, tattoos, scars, arrogance. Cutter saw it all in the way they held their pistols low and their grins high. Move, one said. Cutter didn't. He fired first. One shot, clean through the shoulder. The man dropped, cursing. The other returned fire, bullets shattering glass, ripping the doorframe. Cutter ducked behind the workbench and fired again. The second man went down hard. The third stayed in the van, yelling curses that got swallowed by the wind. Cutter pumped the shotgun once more. Leave her. Leave the kid, or you'll meet God limping. The engine roared. Tires spun out, kicking dust. The van vanished down the road. Cutter stood in the silence after, chest heaving. Inside, June crawled out, eyes wide. You shot them? Yeah, they'll come back. He nodded. Then we'll be ready. Marlene stirred again, voice faint. The baby's coming. Cutter blinked once. Now? June nodded. Now! He looked at the cot, at the storm, at the blood drying on his hands, and went to boil water. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. Cutter knelt beside Marlene, sweat already beading across her forehead. The storm outside clawed at the windows, rattling loose nails like teeth. He tore open the duffel the girl had carried. Inside, baby clothes, half-wet blankets, a jar of honey, and a photograph folded to near dust. A man with a Reaper's Sons patch had his arm around Marlene. Cutter's jaw flexed. He boiled water in an old camping pot, ripped a flannel into strips. June hovered, wide-eyed. Is she gonna die? Not tonight. He poured the words slow, steady. She's tougher than me. A contraction hit hard. Marlene screamed once, bit her knuckle to keep from doing it again. Cutter caught her shoulders. Breathe. With me? She looked at him, eyes glassy. You don't know what they did. I don't need to. Outside, thunder cracked again. The child came into the world with a cry that tore through every lie the night had left. And then, silence. For a second, Cutter thought the baby hadn't made it. Then a small, trembling breath filled the room. He exhaled, shaking harder than he wanted anyone to see. It's a boy, he said quietly. Marlene turned her head, tears streaming, half from pain, half from something older. Cutter laid the child in her arms, his fingers brushing the brand scar burned faint on her collarbone. June crept closer. What's his name? Marlene blinked. Haven't named him yet. Cutter poured whiskey over his hands, wiped the blood from his wrists. You will, the girl smiled. Mama likes bears, Cutter grinned faintly. Then he's Bear. They sat there under the hum of the propane heater, surrounded by wind and newborn breath. Outside, the tracks from the Reaper's van were already half buried in sleet. Marlene's eyes fluttered. They'll come again. Cutter looked toward the bikes outside, 4 angels sleeping in the dark. Then we'll be ready. He stood, loaded his shotgun, and whispered to the storm, Not tonight. Morning broke pale and metallic. Cutter brewed coffee thick enough to stand a spoon in. Marlene slept light, the baby curled against her chest. June sat near the stove drawing circles in the soot. You ride? Cutter asked softly. She shrugged. Mama said angels ride loud so God can hear 'em coming. He smirked. Smart woman. He stepped outside to the bitter wind. Frost clung to the Harleys like armor. Her black van's tracks cut across the dirt road, leading west toward the canyon. He knew they'd be back before sunset. He grabbed his phone, called Red, the club's sergeant-at-arms. Need backup. Cabin 47 off Desert Creek, we got civilians. Reaper's crew. Red asked, Yeah, and a newborn? Copy that. We're rolling. Cutter slipped the phone back into his pocket. He looked at the horizon, the empty stretch of desert that always promised something ugly. He whispered to himself, "They branded you once. This time we brand them back with fire." The wind carried it away like a vow. By late afternoon the angels arrived, 5 bikes, thunder in formation. Red led them in, bald head gleaming under the sun, his cut flapping like scripture. When he saw the woman and child inside, he whistled low. "Hell of a daycare, Cutter." Cutter poured him black coffee. "Reaper's been sniffin'. They want her back." Red's face hardened. "Property mark?" Left shoulder faint, Red spat in the sink. "Then she ain't property no more." They barricaded the windows, stacked sandbags from Cutter's old army stash, prepped for a siege that might never end. Inside, Marlene stirred awake. "You bringing war on yourselves," she murmured. Cutter crouched by her. "War's already here, sweetheart. We just decided who we're fighting for." June watched through the cracks as the angels checked weapons and cleaned chains. Not like criminals, but guardians. When the first engine rumbled in the distance, Red looked up. "Showtime." Cutter chambered a shell and whispered, "No more running." The sun went down red, bleeding across the sand. Headlights cut through the dusk. 3 Reaper bikes and a truck behind them. Cutter and his crew crouched low, guns ready. "Remember," Red said, "no one crosses the porch. Mama and kid stay breathing." "That's it." The Reapers rolled in slow, cocky. Their leader, a tall, tattooed man with a snake inked across his jaw, smiled. "Evening, angels. Heard your shelter and stolen goods." Cutter stepped forward. "You want something, come take it." The snake man grinned wider. "She belongs to me." A shotgun blast answered him. The fight broke open. Chaos, muzzle flashes lighting the desert like lightning. Tires screamed. Men shouted. Cutter moved like a ghost through dust and gunfire. Every trigger pull was a heartbeat. Every shout was memory. When it was over, the Reapers were gone, or dead. Smoke rose from a burning bike, curling into the cold sky. Cutter dropped to one knee, chest heaving. From inside, the baby cried. He smiled weakly. "Guess we lived another night." The desert dawn came cold and pale, washing the blood into the dust until it looked like rust. Cutter sat on the porch step, smoke curling from his cigarette, watching the sun crawl up the ridge like it didn't trust the world yet. Red walked up, wiping his hands on a rag. 3 dead. 2 crawled off. "We buried 'em out back," Cutter nodded. "Any of ours?" Stinger took one in the leg. "He'll live." Silence settled. "The kind that only comes after you've killed for something that mattered." From inside came a baby's soft cry. Cutter stubbed the cigarette out, rose, and stepped through the door. Marlene sat upright, blanket draped across her shoulders. Her eyes followed him like she was measuring whether to thank him or run. "You can rest now," Cutter said quietly. She shook her head. "You don't know what he'll do." Cutter's gaze hardened. "He won't do nothing." "Not while you're under this roof." Her jaw trembled. "You can't save me," he sighed. "Maybe not. But I can stand with you." Later that morning, Cutter cleaned his pistol by the window. June sat cross-legged on the floor, feeding bear milk from a bottle. Red stood near the door, eyeing the old photograph Cutter had found. He pointed. "That him?" Cutter nodded. "Reaper Prez calls himself Knox." Red's face went grim. "That man don't stop. He'll come himself next time." "Good," Cutter said. "He can die himself too," Red smirked. "Always did like your optimism." When he left to patrol the road, Cutter sat down beside June. "Your mama eat yet?" She nodded. "A little." Then softer. "You gonna leave us?" Cutter paused. "That what she said?" June shook her head. "Just what I think people do." He stared at the fire, the embers pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "Not this time, kid." Outside, wind tugged at the tattered flag on his bike's antenna. Beneath the grime, you could still see the red and white wings of the angels. Inside, for the first time, warmth didn't feel borrowed. By afternoon, Marlene tried to stand. Cutter moved to help her, but she waved him off. "I can walk." She made it 2 steps before her knees buckled. Cutter caught her by the arm, steadying her gently. "Sit," he said. Her eyes burned. "You don't get to tell me what to do." He didn't argue. "Then don't fall." That earned him the faintest ghost of a smile. She sat on the edge of the cot, staring out the window. "When I was with him," she whispered, "I used to think if I could just have the baby, he'd stop. He said I was his brand, his proof. He marked me so the world would know." Cutter crouched down in front of her. "And now the world knows he's dead wrong." Her eyes shimmered. "You really think I can start over?" "Darling, out here we start over every damn day." She looked down at her sleeping son. "Then I'll start with him." Cutter nodded slowly. "That's the best way there is." That night the angels stayed watch outside. Cutter sat by the fire inside the cabin, carving something from an old piece of oak. Marlene watched him from across the room, bare in her lap. "What are you making?" He smiled without looking up. "A nameplate. Cabin's never had one." She tilted her head. "And now it does." He shrugged. "You got a right to call some place yours?" She stared at the flames. "He used to say that too, before he broke everything." Cutter stopped carving. "Then maybe we fix it different." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was tired, peaceful in a way neither had known for years. Outside, Red's bike rumbled low as he patrolled the perimeter. June slept under Cutter's old leather jacket by the heater. When he finished, Cutter held up the wooden plate. Burned into it were 3 words, "Home for Angels." He looked at her and said quietly, "Guess that includes you now." She didn't speak, just reached out and touched the wood. The next morning Cutter woke to quiet. No engines, no wind. Just peace, the kind that always came before trouble. Red burst through the door a minute later. "We got movement. Big group. Knox is with them." Cutter's stomach turned cold. How many?" 5, maybe 6. But they got steel." He looked over at Marlene. She was already pulling June close, fear flickering behind her calm. "We can run," she said. Cutter shook his head. "Ain't running anymore. This land's seen enough cowards." He loaded his shotgun, slipped his cut over his shoulders, and kissed the baby's forehead. "You stay down here. No matter what you hear." Marlene's voice broke. "Why are you doing this?" He smiled faintly. "'Cause a man's got 2 choices in life, protect what's his or pretend he don't care. I'm done pretending." He opened the door and stepped into the cold dawn, where 6 Reaper bikes waited at the tree line. Engines growling like wolves that smelled blood. The Reapers came slow, dust curling around their tires like smoke from hell. Cutter stood in the open, shotgun slung low, the patch on his back catching the wind. Hellsangels, Nevada charter. Knox led them, beard streaked grey, snake tattoo twisting down his jaw. He smirked when he saw Cutter. "Didn't figure the angels for charity work." Cutter didn't flinch. "I ain't charity. It's justice." Knox laughed, mean and loud. "You think you can keep what's mine? That woman's marked property. She carries my son." "She carries her son," Cutter said. "And she don't belong to anyone." Knox's grin vanished. "That's where you're wrong." He raised his gun, but before he could fire, Red's rifle barked from behind the porch. The shot ripped through Knox's shoulder, spinning him back. The angels opened up. The desert thundered again. Dust, flame, lead, and fury filled the morning. Cutter charged forward, heart pounding like his engine used to. He'd been waiting his whole life for a fight that meant something. The shootout tore across the ridge. 2 Reapers went down fast. Another dropped his weapon and ran. Cutter ducked behind the porch post, reloaded, fired again. Splinters flew. Knox screamed orders, blood soaking his cut. "Bring me the woman!" Inside, Marlene clutched Bear to her chest. June hid behind her, trembling but silent, remembering Cutter's words, "You don't bend. You just wait." Red took a bullet in the shoulder but kept firing. "Ain't losing this place," he roared. Cutter saw Knox crawling toward a downed Angel's gun. He ran, boots hammering dirt, and slammed into him full force. They hit the ground hard. Knox's knife flashed once, grazing Cutter's ribs. Cutter grunted, twisted the blade away, and drove his fist into Knox's jaw. "You branded her," Cutter growled. "Now I brand you." He pressed the hot barrel of his revolver against Knox's neck until flesh sizzled. Knox howled. Cutter leaned close, voice like gravel. "That's what belonging feels like, don't it?" When the smoke cleared, the reapers were gone. 2 dead, 1 crawling away, 1 branded with his own mark of shame. Red limped up beside Cutter, bleeding but grinning. "Guess we still know how to clear a house." Cutter spat blood, wiped his mouth. "You good?" "I'll drink later." "Hurt now." They laughed once, hollow but alive. Inside, the cabin was quiet again. Cutter stepped through the door and froze. Marlene sat on the floor holding Bear, tears streaking her cheeks. June peeked out from behind the chair. "It's over," Cutter said softly. Marlene looked up. "Is it ever?" He crouched down. "Maybe not. But he ain't coming back." She looked at his side, blood seeping through his shirt. "You're hurt," he shrugged. "Ain't the first time. Won't be the last." Then she whispered, "Thank you." He almost smiled. "Don't thank me." "Just live," she nodded. "We will, but where do we go now?" Cutter looked at the broken door and said, "Anywhere you want, long as it's forward." 2 days later, the angels buried the dead out back beneath the desert mesquite. The wind carried the smell of gun oil and sage. Cutter stood apart, leaning on a shovel, ribs bandaged tight. Red walked over. "Charter's moving out tomorrow." "What about you?" Cutter stared at the cabin. "Think I'll stick around a while?" Red nodded once. "She got to you, huh?" He didn't answer. Just watched the smoke rise from the chimney, a fragile thread of life against the vast sky. Inside, Marlene rocked Bear by the window. June hummed soft, tracing the burned badge Cutter had left on the table, the hellsangels' wings, blackened but proud. When Cutter came in, Marlene looked up. "You still think this place is yours?" He shook his head. "No, it's ours now." She smiled, tired but real. "Then let's start over." He leaned on the doorway, sun framing him like a ghost turning human again. "Yeah," he said. "We can start right here." By spring, the cabin had a new sign nailed to the porch rail, "Angel's Rest." The scars on Cutter's ribs faded, but the ones in his heart finally started to heal. Red still dropped by sometimes, always leaving a 6-pack and a grin. Marlene planted flowers out back, said she liked the idea of color where blood once fell. June learned to ride Cutter's old dirt bike, laughing loud enough for the hills to echo. Sometimes at night, Cutter would sit outside, watching the stars hum above the desert. The wind would roll through the canyon, carrying ghosts that used to haunt him. But now, they just passed by. He'd look toward the cabin light glowing through the window, hear the baby's soft cry, Marlene's quiet humming, and think, maybe angels weren't winged things after all. Maybe they rode chrome and carried scars. He smiled into the dark. "Guess I found mine. If this story found you tonight, if you believe family can be built from ruin and love can ride through fire, you're one of us. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and ride with us for more stories where loyalty burns brighter than the road ahead."